Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so great to see you and be here, and I don't know how I can speak after that either, Peggy. Peggy's my dear soul sister, and I've written a talk to suit her song. I didn't know I was doing that, but that's exactly how it is. But anyway, I am so happy to be here with all of you, and I'm very grateful that Reverend Patty is trusting me with you for 3 weeks. So, and I'm so glad that she took the opportunity to go away so I could be here, but also for her rest and recreation, because ministers really need to do that, even though we love to stay present and hold on to everything. But not that she's doing that, that's what I would be doing. So I want to speak inside Reverend Patty's theme for the month, and her theme is looking with the eyes of God. And the talk for today is loving your life. Now, the talk space has been so well prepared by the prayers and everything that's the music, everything that's happened, all the songs. And you know, just as an aside, I was looking through my files of the talks that I've done here, and the last 3 or 4 talks have all been about love. So here I am again, and I guess you're the love space. You know, I guess you're the love space, and I'm just here to confirm that and acknowledge that. But here's a beautiful poem written by St. Francis of Assisi, and it's called God Would Kneel Down. I think God might be a little prejudiced, for once he asked me to join him on a walk through this world, and we gazed into every heart on this earth. And I noticed he lingered a bit longer before any face that was weeping and before any eyes that were laughing. And sometimes when we passed a soul in worship, God too would kneel down. I have come to learn God adores his creation. Want to hear it again? Say yes. Okay, good. I think God might be a little prejudiced, for once he asked me to join him on a walk through this world. And we gazed into every heart on this earth. And I noticed he lingered a bit longer before any face that was weeping and before any eyes that were laughing. And sometimes when we passed a soul in worship, God too would kneel down. I have come to learn God adores his creation. So God adores his creation, or its creation, or her creation, however you'd like that to be. And if we are actually looking with the eyes of God and seeing with the eyes of God, we will too. And that means that we will love creation in general. And Emmett Curtis Hopkins teaches the finished kingdom that God's creation has already been made, and it's here for you to love. But we will also be loving our own creations. If we're really looking with the eyes of God, and if God loves his creation, we will be loving our own creations. And our creations are our life, our body, our circumstances, our situations, our relationships, our art, our business, and everything else that we bring into being in our life expression. And so what does it mean to love your life or to adore your creations? Well, I think first of all it means seeing them as good. Seeing them as good with a capital G. There's a big difference between good with a capital G and good with a small g. One is the ultimate, complete, total good, and the other one is the forms of good. So to see good with a capital G means that we're seeing the abiding reality of God, that the veils drop from our seeing, and we're seeing this whole vast creation as good. As it says in Genesis, and God saw that it was good. And we would see them, we would see our creations in terms of their presence and not their absence. We would see the presence of good that we have been creating, and we would be releasing from our minds all of that strange habit we have of always seeing what's missing. Yes? So we would see presence rather than absence. So that's number one. If we were seeing with or looking with the eyes of God, we would see good. If we were really loving our life, and love means self-givingness, that's Ernest Holmes' definition, then we would really be giving ourselves to our creations. We would be really giving ourselves to our lives, to our life, and to our relationships, and to our businesses, and to all of our activities, meaning we would be not holding back, and we would not be expecting someone else to do it for us. We would be fully engaged in the experience of our life. That would be us loving our life with love of self-givingness. The third thing, another definition of love for you today, is that love is the awareness of oneness. And so if we were really loving our life, we would be one with our life, not split off, not chilled out, not checked out. We would be fully embraced and embodied in our life consciously, and you are there anyway, so I may as well be conscious about it, right? But we'd be actively living it, and we would be actively influencing our lives. And I want to look at that word influence in just a moment. But I opened up Ernest Holmes' book, this thing called You, which would be a lovely companion piece for these 3 talks if you want to get into some Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes says, life will be to you what you are to it. Life will be to you what you are to it. I believe that that's so. And so when we love someone or something, there's a greater chance of it loving us back. Yeah? If we're doing the loving. Because everything will be to us what we are to it. It's only what we send out that we can get back. And that's really how it goes. So we have tremendous influence over our lives. And I'm not even sure we realize that. I think we go south on that a little bit sometimes. We have the ability to shape our experience. So in what we believe, Ernest Holmes says, we believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that this creative mind receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. Okay, so we believe in this thing called spirit that operates through mind or law. It's a creative medium that receives the impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. And then he goes on to say, we believe in the healing of the sick through the power of this mind. Yes, we do. We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind. Now, we could debate that word control. We could debate that word control. And so I like to say we believe in the influence of our conditions through the power of this mind. That you have the ability to choose your thoughts, your beliefs. They're subconscious, but when you get conscious about them, you can change them. Your words, your actions, your choices, and your behavior. You have huge influence over that. That is the domain of your life, and you are the monarch. You are the king, queen of your own domain, and that's your domain. And as you choose those things, as you shape those things, you completely influence your life experience, particularly in how you experience it. And so I think sometimes we let go of that idea and we fall into feeling at the effect of life, and there's plenty to feel at the effect of these days. Plenty in society. And yet, we have the ability to influence our own experience. So all of those things shape our outer journey. And they shape our linear experience of life and how we progress from here to there, the stuff called our history, you know, all of the beginnings and endings of people, places, and things, all the births and deaths. All of those things shape our trajectory in the outer way. But what I want to do is open up a deeper inquiry with you that Peggy's song got right into. And that is really the journey of your soul. Because underneath kind of the linear sequence of our lives and this progression from here to there, and now I'm doing church and then I have stuff to do later, you know, what streams for all of us is this inner journey that is really about our awakening and our unfoldment as a soul. And what do I mean by soul? I mean your deep, divine uniqueness and individuality. The deepest individualized truth of you, for you are a soul. And Ernest Holmes says the soul is on a pathway of experience, and it's seeking to know its inherent nature in terms of freedom. So we are on a pathway of experience to get free and to realize the wholeness and the fullness of who we are. So, as Jill Bolte Taylor said, please take a step to the right of your left brain and come with me into this inner territory that is not linear at all. It's the journey of your own soul, and it seems to progress more by twists and turns, and it has to do with who you are in your unique essence and who you are becoming every single moment. Who you are becoming every single moment. You could call it the story within the story of your life. It's the deep story of your own life. It is the story of your soul. It is the story. And so the inner, as I was thinking about this, I see that the inner journey is absolutely influenced by how we live the outer journey. So I was sitting getting my hair done on Friday. Lots of therapy goes down in the stylist chair, by the way. Mutual. And I don't know how we got into this, but anyway, my hairstylist is somebody who used to come to Pacific Church back in the day, so she's got an awareness of religious science and all things spiritual. And so for whatever we were talking about, I started talking about my early years, my childhood, and what my experience was. And I noticed I was witnessing, it's always good to witness what you're doing. So I was witnessing that I was talking very straightforwardly and very matter-of-factly, and I was sharing what was so, and there was no sting. There was no sting, there was no, there was no regret, there was no sadness, there was no hostility, there was nothing. But the straight storyline. And I realized it's because I've done decades of work. Did you hear me say decades of work? Decades, yes, decades. To forgive, to release the drama and the trauma, yeah. And the other thing that I know, so that was one realization, and the other thing that I noticed was that it was a completely uninteresting story to tell after about a minute. It was like, that is so the old story, because it isn't the story. It's the story of then. It's the story of the accumulated experience of my soul. It is not the story of now, thank God. And although I carry her in me, this younger self, an unfolding soul, and she lives in me, I don't live in her, except when she takes over, which hasn't happened, thankfully, for a very long time. And so the awareness just opened up for me another appreciation for this winding path that happens on the inside and the potential that we have to grow and to learn. And it is the realization that everything is grist for the mill of awakening, every single thing. Everything that has ever taken place in your life and everything that hasn't taken place is for your awakening, and it got you here. And here is a pretty good place to be right now. Here is a good place to be. So it has gotten you here. And you know what? You don't want to waste time hating a failure. I would encourage you to not waste time hating a failure, because you learn more from failure than you do from success. And every single thing that you might call a failure is, by the way, not how God sees it, because God sees only presence, not absence. And it's wasted energy, because it took all of that. It took all of that to get you right here to the soul that you are right now. And what I realized for myself is that the more I make peace with the outer journey, the more the inner journey becomes evident to me. The more I'm not caught up in, the issues of the outer journey, the more I can actually see this windy, twisty, marvelous evolution of the soul that I am. And I think the same thing would be true for you, which is just a little, tick on the to-do list of, let me get those issues handled, which, by the way, you can. They are not infinite. They are finite, and that's another really good piece of news. So, but there's a mutual thing, too, and the more I'm in the inner journey, the more I can deal with the outer journey, because I can see what it's all about. I can see what it's all about. So again, Ernest Holmes saying, the soul is on a pathway of experience, and our inherent nature is seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. And so I invite you for these 3 weeks to start opening up an inquiry with yourself about the deeper storyline and your own soul unfoldment and who you are as an individual soul in your utter uniqueness. Because there is no other soul here like you. There is not one other. And take a look at, in the twists and turns of your life and the winding path, how you've been becoming who you really are in that deeper place. And start telling it, write it down, sing the song of your soul. Tell somebody about it, journal it, whatever it might be, or at least think about it. Now, the Buddhists call this inner path the pathless path. And it is the path that has no map. You won't find it written down anywhere. It's not laid out. It is not the same for anybody. And it's highly individual, and you feel it and see it as you live it. You feel it and see it as you live it. And this whole exploration of the pathless path started opening for me as I completed my 10-year job with United Centers for Spiritual Living and started wondering, well, God, what's next? You know, thank you. Is that for the what's next? Yeah, and it's interesting because people say, what are you going to do now? And I said, I think I'm doing it. And every now and then my mind goes off into, oh my God, I'm missing a big it. You know, do I need a big it? So I'm it-less at the moment. And that feels good for now, although it gets me itchy sometimes. But anyway. So there's a poet, I think he's a Spanish poet, could be Italian, named Antonio Machado. And he says this. He says, Pathmaker, there is no path. You make the path by walking. By walking, you make the path. Pathmaker, there is no path. You make the path by walking. By walking, you make the path. And that is exactly the truth of this inner journey that I'm talking about. We make the path by walking it. And all we can ever do is be on the step that we're on. And we can't really see very far ahead, which is why a corollary to it is walking by faith and not by sight. You know, we take a step in faith and we find, wow, the ground's right under my feet. But it's not like we can see so far away. Remember when we used to do 5 and 10-year goals? They usually change about a month into it. You know? And that is the truth about life right now. There's an acceleration. Things are going very fast. And we may have some big things. I'm looking at Jean. Where are you, Jean? Over there. She looks just like you right there. Jean knows that she's going to be a licensed minister, so she's got a big thing out there, and she's taking steps toward it. But I bet the inner path is really twisty getting there. So it's about feeling this path that you yourself are making so that you can have a deep and rich appreciation for what your life is, so that you can actually love your life and be in your life and have a soulful experience of your life, because that's what it's about. The surface is really interesting, and that's where we engage with people, and we accomplish things, or we don't accomplish things, and there's all of that. But there's this deeper, richer journey that is going on that I think merits our look at it. And so I've been very moved by a new book of poems by David White, who I realized I talked about also the last time I came here. I had just come out of a workshop with him. And his book of poems and his CD is called Pilgrim. And he talks about the word pilgrim, which is pellegrino in Spanish and Italian. And he says that that word pilgrim may be the most accurate description of life in terms of its deeper journey. that we are pilgrims, that a pilgrim is someone who is passing through, who came from some other place, who isn't here for all that long, and yet the time spent on the path is a total privilege. A total privilege. The time spent on the path and the time that we spend with other people is an incredible privilege. And he says that we do a lot of the walking alone as a pilgrim. By the way, his poems are about walking through Ireland, and he walked the Camino, which is in northern Spain, that pilgrimage path in northern Spain. And all through his poems, it's this experience of the outer and the inner path. And he says a lot of the time we do our walking alone, and that's true in life, and yet we love companionship. And that we love to have people in our life with whom, especially at the end of the day, but people in our life with whom we can share the accidental beauties of the journey, the ahas, the things we've experienced that we have awakened to. And he says that that a pilgrim is, and we are incredibly dependent upon the hospitality of others, the hospitality and the support. There is a huge hospitality here that has welcomed us to Vision today. Can you feel it? We are here because of the hospitality of Vision. And not one of us would make it through the first couple of weeks of life without a tremendous welcome and hospitality on the part of the people who took care of us. And many a time we sit at the table of people who have welcomed us in their hospitality and who support us in some way. And then there's the hospitality of society that gives us clean water and libraries and education. And I would invite you to just let your awareness as a pilgrim on the path open to see the incredibly generous hospitality that is afforded to you as you go through your daily life. And it's also about just opening up to the astonishing nature of life itself, that we're living a something rather than a nothing. That in itself is incredible. I once listened to the philosopher Brian Swim, who was talking about the appearance of the earth and life on earth, and actually it's such a narrow range of possibility by which that happened, that we are here. Incredibly narrow range. Things had to be lined up exactly so for us to be here. That is astonishing. You know, there's a song that says, if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. If you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. And so I invite you to open up the awe feeling, A-W-E, not A-H, A-W-E, to really see what it is and to see the extraordinary nature of your own life and this soul that you have been becoming for a very, very long time. And if Ernest Holmes is right, you've been traveling in the life stream of that soul for eons, And here's the interesting thing. No matter how many people have walked the path before you, you are a frontier that has never existed before. You are a wholly unique experience on the planet, and you create your life by your perception and your conversation with life itself. And that's pretty amazing. And by the conversation, you make things happen. According to the conversation you have with life and about life, you make things happen. And so I just want to encourage you to open up that awareness. And I'm going to read to you a poem. Are you ready? Okay. So this is kind of long. And once again, move to the right of your left brain, okay? Because this is one of David Whyte's poems. It's called Santiago. And Santiago, I think, is the terminal point of the Camino in northern Spain. And he is talking about this relationship between the inner and the outer journey. And it's one long sentence, so it has that traveling feeling to it. Here you go. The road seen, then not seen, the hillside hiding, then revealing the way you should take, the road dropping away from you as if leaving you to walk on thin air, then catching you, holding you up when you thought you would fall. And the way forward, always in the end, the way you followed, the way that carried you into your future, that brought you to this place. No matter that it sometimes took your promise from you, no matter that it had to break your heart along the way. The sense of having walked from far inside yourself out into the revelation, to have risked yourself for something that seemed to stand both inside you and far beyond you, that called you back to the only road in the end you could follow, walking as you did in your rags of love and speaking in the voice that by night became a prayer for safe arrival, so that one day you realized that what you wanted had already happened long ago, and in the dwelling place you had lived in before you began, and that every step along the way you had carried the heart and the mind and the promise that first set you off and drew you on, and that you were more marvelous in your simple wish to find a way than the gilded roofs of any destination you could reach. I have to read that line again. And that every step along the way you had carried the heart and the mind and the promise that first set you off and drew you on, and that you were more marvelous in your simple wish to find a way than the gilded roofs of any destination you could reach. As if all along you had thought the end point might be a city with golden towers and cheering crowds. And turning the corner at what you thought was the end of the road, you found just a simple reflection and a clear revelation beneath the face looking back, and beneath it another invitation all in one glimpse, like a person and a place you had sought forever, like a broad field of freedom that beckoned you beyond, like another life and the road still stretching on. So there's so much in that, just so much. You know, that in our linear life, we expect the gilded city, right? The city with the gold towers, this arrival at something. And yet in the inner life, we're just traveling. We're just moving and learning and growing and sharing and being astonished and opening up to the miracle and seeking to know who we are and doing our best to love along the way. And that there really is no destination, because even when it's over, it isn't over. Because we go on and on and on and on. Yeah, interesting. So, I'm going to come to a close now. And I would invite you to love your life. You know, to take some time over the next couple of weeks to just let that open up and see it looking through the eyes of God. Not the missteps and the mistakes, because with God's eyes, there aren't any. With God's eyes, there aren't any. All there is the learning. Give up wasting time on caring about a failure. Gather the information and the learning and journey on. Look with the eyes of God that can only appreciate. And here's the truth. You are God's creation, and God loves its creation. God adores its creation. That includes you. And so Ernest Holmes says, seek to make your work a prayer, your believing and act, and your living an art. Seek to make your work a prayer, your believing an act, and your living an art. So be it, and so it is. Thank you.